I'll pay you double if you have a balance." The man's confident voice echoed through the small branch of the bank, drawing curious stares from the few customers waiting in line. The manager, sitting at his polished wooden desk with his chin slightly lifted, smirked and let out a mocking laugh. To him, this was just another bold, desperate claim from a man who probably had no money at all. What the manager didn't know was that the person standing before him wasn't just an ordinary customer, he was the CEO of the very bank whose walls they stood inside. The story began earlier that morning, when a man in his late 50s, dressed in simple clothes and carrying a worn-out leather bag, walked quietly into the bank. His hair was graying, his shoes a little scuffed, and his face carried the weight of someone who had seen both hardship and success. No one gave him much attention. In fact, most assumed he was just another old man coming in to check on a small account. But there was a calm authority in the way he stood, a confidence in his eyes that went unnoticed by the employees busy chasing their daily quotas. The manager of this branch, a young man named Tariq, had built a reputation for being arrogant. He judged people by their clothes, their speech, and the way they carried themselves. To him, a wealthy person always looked wealthy. If someone didn't flash their gold watch or designer suit, they weren't worth his respect. That morning, Tariq had already turned away two farmers who came to inquire about loans. He spoke to them rudely, dismissing their needs as if their dreams didn't matter. And now, when this older man approached his desk with a quiet request to check his account, Tariq immediately assumed it would be a waste of time. "Do you even have a balance here?" Tariq asked sharply, his lips curling into a sneer. "This bank is not for people who want to waste our time." The man's eyes remained steady, unshaken by the insult. He gave a small smile and replied softly, "Check it for me. And if I don't have a balance, I'll pay you double." The words, though simple, carried an unusual weight. Tariq leaned back in his chair and laughed loudly, attracting the attention of the other staff. "Double," he repeated mockingly. "Sir, I think you don't understand how banks work. People like you don't just walk in and make big promises." The old man didn't argue. He didn't defend himself or raise his voice. Instead, he simply slid a small, aged checkbook across the desk, his fingers steady as he waited. The silence that followed was almost uncomfortable. Tariq, still smirking, opened the system and entered the account details. But as his eyes scanned the screen, his expression began to change. His smirk faded. His jaw tightened. The color drained from his face. There, before him, was not a small balance or an empty account, but a figure so large it nearly made his hands tremble. The account contained billions, an amount that could keep the branch running for years. Tariq's heart raced as he quickly double-checked the numbers, convinced it must be an error. But it wasn't. The system confirmed it. And at the very top of the profile, in bold letters, the name of the account holder was clear, Mr. Kamal Hassan, Chief Executive Officer. At that moment, Tariq realized he had mocked, insulted, and laughed at the CEO of the bank he worked for. His throat went dry, his palms sweaty. The room felt smaller, and the weight of his arrogance pressed down on him like a heavy stone. Mr. Kamal looked at him calmly, without anger. His eyes carried the quiet wisdom of someone who had once been underestimated many times in his life. "You see," he said gently, "money doesn't always dress in gold. Respect isn't something you give based on appearances, it should come from the heart. Every person who walks into this bank deserves dignity, whether they carry 1 rupee or 1,000,000. Today, you laughed at me. Tomorrow, you might laugh at someone else who comes in seeking help. But what if that person's life depends on your respect?" Tariq's hands shook as he stood up, stammering apologies. His arrogance had shattered in a single moment, replaced by shame and regret. The other employees, who had been watching in silence, lowered their heads, realizing the lesson too. Customers who had once been dismissed now looked at the scene with a mix of awe and satisfaction, but Mr. Kamal wasn't finished. He leaned forward and placed a hand on the desk. "I started my journey with nothing. Years ago, I walked into a bank just like this, and someone looked at me the same way you did today. They made me feel small. They made me feel like my dreams didn't matter. But I didn't let their judgment define me. I worked hard, and today, I stand here as proof that no one should ever be measured by their clothes, their face, or the weight of their wallet." The room was silent. Even the sound of typing had stopped. Mr. Kamal stood up, his presence filling the branch with a quiet strength. Respect, he continued, is the real wealth that costs nothing but gives everything. Before leaving, he turned back to Tariq, whose eyes were brimming with tears of humiliation. Learn this lesson well. Every person is a story, and every story deserves to be heard. Don't be the reason someone feels worthless. Be the reason they find courage. And with that, Mr. Kamal walked out of the bank, his steps calm, his heart steady. For him, this was not about proving wealth, it was about reminding everyone that dignity must never be reserved for the rich alone. That day, Tariq changed. He never forgot the humiliation of mocking his own CEO, but more importantly, he never forgot the lesson. From then on, he greeted every customer, rich or poor, with equal respect, understanding that the true balance in life is not in the account numbers but in the way we treat others, and to everyone who witnessed it, the story spread like fire. The day the bank manager laughed at a man who promised to pay double only to discover he was laughing at the very CEO of the bank, the message still echoes. True wealth is not measured in money, but in respect, kindness, and humility.